The anatomy of loss. The history of humanity's melancholia, all its compounded longing, suffering, and pain, can be traced onto the lacrimal tear duct. We both have it right here. And I asked myself, how is it possible for something so small to capture the sorrows that billions of our species share? No one ever told me that grief feels like fear, the angst in your stomach, the uneasiness, the flood of emotions and ideas, the uncertainty and the doubt. And that when we suffer, we are not merely suffering, we are thinking about ourselves as we are suffering. Whether it's the death of a loved one, the dissolution of a romantic relationship, the symbolic death of ourselves, the anatomy of loss defines life for us in light of a future where what we value is not and will not be. The German-French painter beautifully created this masterpiece, August Friedrich Schenk, showing the mourning of a female lamb, a ewe, and the lifeless body of that lamb in the snow, and the murder of crows coming in, ready to scavenge the carcass. The metaphysical part is the mouth of this sheep, and that moment of suffering being captured. That the anatomy of loss shows the interconnectedness of suffering throughout species, through our understanding of suffering and pain. And that's very profound. We think about the coldness of the universe, the indifference of it, that as we live and as we suffer, that is a pain we carry for ourselves on our shoulders. The love we have for the people we care is infinite, but the time that we have for them is finite. And that seems like a very cruel law, the absolute, that something would never be. And because of that, it changes our perceptions when we go through these moments. We do not know what the future would hold. We do not know what the past is. And certainly the present becomes shaken, a foundation we cannot stand on. And it creates an emotional and cognitive dissonance because we do not know what we have to do, because the mix of the emotions are so profound and devastating. And loss happens in cycles. The flood of emotions, the tsunami of emotions that comes ashore and hits us. And then we're fine. And then suddenly, a smell, a sight, and we're back at it again. Loss also happens in sequences. When someone you love dies or leaves you, the mail stops coming. The scent of her is no longer there on your pillows. Her clothes are gone from the wardrobe. And in every moment, you reflect and you think. And that experience, that first-person aspect of loss, is unique to all of us. No one can suffer for you, and no one can feel your pain other than you. Pablo Picasso drew this masterpiece of the bombing of the Bastion of Guernica, with the Nazi Luftwaffe and the fascist Italy destroying lives. You can appreciate the desecration of innocence, the mother holding the dead body of its child, crying. Through Cubist art, disjointness is shown. Fragmentation is seen. The eye over there showing an eye of evil, looking, and the suffering that is still resonant to us nearly a century later. The realness of reality is something that is cold. It happens instantly, and just like that, things change forever. And it requires a certain degree of existential authenticity that as we go through, these parts of us die, so that it reveals something within that we were not able to understand previously, something we were not able to connect with before, and that is there. And suffering immediately becomes a catalyst for transformation, because the world that you live is no longer. So you have to change. You either sink or you swim. And it gives you a sense of perspectives, of an infinite number of other possibilities you have to live with. The beauty of the metamorphosis is not that growth is a process, is that a being has to be changed completely radically for a new one to emerge. And the caterpillar to the butterfly metaphor captures that essence. And that rites of passage are luminal spaces, moments that we have to go through not even knowing what is going on or what is going to happen. That some part of us must die for other parts to live. And that this happens continuously, that our essence is still there, but there are changes happening at such fundamental layers deep within us. The Japanese have a beautiful art of Kintsugi. Kintsugi repairs broken pottery and objects through lacquer, gold, platinum, silver, not to shy away from those scars, but to celebrate them, the vulnerabilities, that recreation of a sense of wholeness. These pains and scars stay within the object, and the art of Kintsugi is a reminder of healing as piecing together a new self. And that wholeness is our life, it's your life, and those moments are for you. It relates to the concept of wabi-sabi. Wabi meaning less is more, and sabi meaning melancholic reflection. And the beauty of accepting our imperfections is a reality we must accept. And that the most important part, as we think, is that the past is always pregnant with the future. That the past is the greatest predictor of future through the determinism that our life shapes and takes form. And as we live that life, that narrative, the visibility of these scars will stay, and they should stay. And that healing itself is a process. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes patience, back and forths that we cannot control, but we have to be at peace with. Haruki Murakami wrote beautifully. He said, lost opportunities, lost possibilities, feelings we can never get back. That is part of what it means to be alive. But inside our heads, we have this library that we can go back to at any time to review those reference cards. We have to dust things up every little once in a while and let in fresh air. We live forever in that private library in our minds. Finding beauty in tragedy is another important theme. Beauty is something that is timeless and universal, beyond mode, fad, or fashion. Beauty in the sense of humanity, humanism, ideas we bestowed from the Age of Enlightenment that concepts like individuality and freedom refer to. And there's beauty in tragedy, there's beauty in loss, of realizing our own insignificance in forces far greater than ourselves, and the humility that we live in a speck of dust in a grand ocean of a cosmos. In literature and philosophy and art, we never say pain ascends, we say pain descends. And as it descends, it transforms us, the fundamental unity of who we are. And it creates sediments of layers, layers of experience, layers of memory, layers of love. And there's a beautiful aesthetic element to this. The fragility of it, the vulnerability of it, every aspect of it. And that in these moments, there is a sublime, something more profound, something metaphysical. The person who mourns in the anatomy of loss can only understand. They can't explain it, but it's there. And in beauty and tragedy, we also find post-traumatic growth, that being kind and gentle emerges as the only possibility, as the most logical, most rational, most emotional possibility. And only then do we comprehend it. Maxim Vorobiev, when his wife died, created this beautiful but tragic idea of an oak tree being fractured by lightning. Oak trees are known for their longevity, for their resilience, but as you can see and appreciate the shape, the irreversible realness of this, that it's immediate and the tragic aspect stays, shows us how fragile our life is and how beautiful it is because of its fragility. And it still stays to us as we look at this, trying to understand what Maxim Vorobiev felt when the woman he loved died. I urge you, I beseech you, to go to the demolition of a building, to stand there and see everything that once was, bricks, cement, wires, the people who planned it, the engineers, the architects, the workers, the people who lived in that building, the people who made love, triumphant love, broken love, created families, and lived a peaceful life. And as you stand there and see that building collapse to the oblivion of the memories that will be forever inaccessible, I beseech you to find yourself in those moments and have the courage to look. That the inherent vulnerability of being human is a necessity of our lives. It is a rule we cannot fight with. I'm going to be going to neurosurgery starting in July. And I have seen already how fast it is for life just to go. A light forever dimmed. And in that light, there is a trinity of love, loss, and death. To love romantically, platonically, unconditionally is to live. That these three words are different sides of the same idea. And as you look at this image too, the glories of Rome, the glories of the Persian Empire, Gods, people who believed they had divine rights. Where are they now? Ruins. That's all is left, and memories. I also urge you to visit cemeteries and graveyards. There's something really peaceful in going somewhere to reflect and meditate, to look at the names of people on stone. They were somebody's mother, somebody's father, sister, brother, friend. That they lived lives that will be forever inaccessible, that some part of that is unique to that individual and it will be preserved forever, that we can never reach. And that uniqueness is the human condition, that just because we look differently in our faces too, our lives have a different taste. And those are important for us. We realize that there are things beyond us that require us to reflect, to reminisce. The bond we have with the people that we love stays through our brains and hearts. The memories, they shape us. And these memories, decades after someone has died, decades after someone has left us, is still with you. And I urge you to find those centers for yourself. To find that nostalgia is the bridge to the past. A moment of reality that once was. A moment where you lived. Smiles, gazes, comfort, hugs, sadness. And the love that we have for the people we love is not diminished, but it is transformed. It becomes more abstract, it becomes more profound. And as long as we remember someone, our love for them continues to live so long as we care, and so long as we are alive. And that when someone dies, someone that you love, a part of you also dies, but becomes transformed to a different sense of memory. And I think that's remarkable to think about what, as human species, we are capable of through language, through arts, through culture, through history. In light of all of this that we know, and the themes that I have discussed, living an authentic life emerges as the only possibility for us to understand our desires and values, to look for moments of reflection, the glue that brings the core of ourselves together, and that cultivating genuine relationships is all that matters. And believe me, I thought success was what mattered. Giving TED Talks. No. The comfort you find in the embrace of someone you love stays for eternity. And that eternity becomes a life for you, an authentic life. A life where the temporary nature of existence shapes and redefines our attachment to all there is. Marcel Proust, in Search of Lost Time, wrote this, and it's so profound, I will read it for you. A pair of wings, a different respiratory system, which enabled us to travel through space, would in no way help us. For if we visited Mars or Venus, while keeping the same senses, they would clothe everything we could see in the same aspect of the things of the earth. The only true voyage, the only bath in the fountain of youth would be not to visit strange lands, but to possess other eyes, to see 100 others, to see 100 universes, that each of them sees, that each of them is. And when you go back to a part of your childhood, your home, a part of you that you lived, so many parts of it look the same. Maybe they are the same, but you are not. And the angle of life that you have lived changes that meaning for us. And through the anatomy of loss, these perspectives are what ultimately matter for us, because we carry them with ourselves and it shapes our identity. It shapes the eyes that you see, and it shapes the eyes of another that you loved, that you saw the world through. Arnold Böcklin created this tragic but very powerful art piece in The Isle of the Dead. You see two figures carrying a white coffin to an island that's full of tombs. Sure, there is an idea of an afterlife, some rite of passage, some liminal space we talked about, but there's something more profound, that these experiences are something that we have been interested for centuries, and these fascinations will forever be so long as the human species exists. So what's the takeaway point of this? The takeaway point is you do not move on. Some moments of life matter beyond decades of life. People who open new doors for us, doors we did not know existed, doors of possibility. And we live in light of that loss. We may try to walk, we might be paralyzed, we might be crippled. We walk. but we never move on because the pain is so significant for us to think that we move on. We tell ourselves that to deceive ourselves because the amount of that impact is so much and gut-wrenching. And I will end with this. Life will break you. Nobody can protect you from that. And being alone won't either, for solitude will also break you with this yearning. You must love. You must feel. You have to risk your heart. That is the reason that you're here. And once you're swallowed up, and when that happens, when you're broken, betrayed, left, or hurt, or death brushes too near, let yourself sit by an apple tree and listen to the apples falling all around you in heaps, wasting their sweetness. Tell yourself that you tasted as many as you could.